record. There we go. Make sure I record. So if you're here, hashtag live, let me know you're here. If you're catching the replay, also let me know you're catching the replay. I would love to engage with you and answer any questions you may have, because then don't sleep on asking questions on the replay, because I will come back and answer your questions, especially if you have a question about the specific topic that we're talking about. Please take advantage of watching the replay to let me know you are catching the replay, and I can respond to whatever questions come up based on the conversation we are having. So with that said, I know some individuals wanted to know next time I was live, so let me see. Let me send this out to a few folks. All right, here we go. I sent it to a few people. But again, let me know. Let me know if you're here, hashtag live. If you're catching the replay, hashtag replay. Now, in the beginning, the topic is something I've been talking about for quite some time. We're going to get into it, but essentially we're going to talk about like the cost of complacency and what it's done to so many nonprofits. Because this morning I was having this conversation with somebody I had a chat with, another business owner. We were talking about what's going on in the current climate and stuff like that, talking about the things that are not working well for nonprofits, because let's be honest, a lot of nonprofits are having a hard time right now. And this is what I want to talk about, is the cost of complacency. If we look historically how we as a collective, we as a group, and the nonprofit industry itself put itself in a position like we did not want to. Now, I'm not saying we did it on purpose, but the nonprofit industry is in a position that it's never been in before because of putting all its eggs in mostly one basket. That's a lot of organizations, not all of them, right? Now, when I say putting its eggs in one basket, because some programs, some of big organizations are having a hard time, because when you look at it, a lot of their programs, a lot of the health programs that they have, a lot of the programs they have that address certain programs and services for marginalized communities or other things, are coming from government entities. So a lot of them are having a hard time because a lot of the funds came from that. I'm not saying that's the only place that they get funds, but the cost of complacency in letting an entity have so much control over the resources that come to your organization to deliver its services has crippled a lot of nonprofits. And that's why your nonprofit can't afford to rely solely on grants. And that's what we're gonna talk a little bit about today, because I want to make sure that we discuss this and ensure that you are in a space where you understand how you need to move and what direction you need to move in, because it's not a linear path. It's going to be a path with a lot of pivots if necessary, and a lot of changing how you approach the work. And the other thing I want to make clear before we keep going is the fact that your nonprofit organization is a business with a shiny little thing that says you are a tax exempt business. Okay. Now, with that said, you have to come to the table thinking about how to build a business model and revenue generation model that works for your organization and helps you accomplish your mission. Now, with that said, let's say if your nonprofit has been relying solely on grants for the past decade, you're likely feeling the squeeze right now, right? The funding landscape has shifted a lot, and it's time for a lot of nonprofits to pivot, adapt, and figure out and be in rooms and having conversations of how they're going to do that. Oh my God, something went. Okay, let me stop. The dangers of over-relying on grants. Okay. So that's one thing I want to make sure we discuss a little bit today, and before we go to the next thing. Now, over relying on grants, what it's done to a lot of nonprofit organizations, right? A lot of nonprofit organizations and social enterprises have become heavily dependent on single source funding, such as grants, right? This over-reliance, what it did, it created a vulnerability. It created a gap, right? That is being revealed right now in the current climate that we're in for a lot of nonprofit organization. Because if that funding source diminishes or disappears, what happens is the organization's operations and programs are also at risk because we can see this happening in real time where there are some organizations that and corporations that had to let go of staff because the funding they were relying on to pay these individuals and support these programs and services over a span of a few weeks or even a day was taken away, and now they were not able to do it. So the over reliance risk is a big one, and I want you to come to terms that sometimes it's time to pivot, and you have to identify the gaps that exist and how to avoid certain things like that happening. Because sometimes it's about making sure that you have a lean but efficient team, and you have to go back to the drawing board and figure out what that's going to look like because with the changes happening, you are going to need to pivot as a nonprofit organization and determine how to do that. And the lack of flexibility that grants offer, it makes it hard for you to be able to do that because they have strict guidelines oftentimes and limitations on how the funds can be used. That's a lot of grants, right? Not all of them. Some of them are unrestricted funds, but a lot of them are restricted with some guidelines and limitations to them. So what it does, it limits your organization's ability to respond to the needs that you see or invest in capacity building initiatives because you're so busy trying to address these things that these funders are requesting from you. You're trying to make sure you're meeting deliverables and working, and not paying attention to the things you should have been building, right? Because it caused an administrative burden for your organization where you're trying to write so many reports or manage so many multiple grants because it is work. It is a lot of work when you get grants, but you have to ask yourself, is the funding worth it in reaching your mission? Because if you knew this year was going to happen, would it have been worth it before? Okay, because it requires a significant administrative effort, including reporting, compliance, and it can divert resources from a lot of other programs that you have. Because then let's say in this program you need a financial or some type of reporter there, but the funds that you're using to pay this person does not support what they can do for this other grant. So there's a lot of resources being diverted away from what you actually need to use it for, right? And there's also data that shows that 60 to 80% of nonprofits rely on government grants, and what would happen to them is that they would face financial shortfalls if significant funding changes occur. Y'all, we're living that right now. Okay. Imagine this said 60 to 80% of them would experience financial shortfalls. We're actually going through that. Okay. So what I want you to do is I want you to conduct a funding audit. Okay. You have to assess the proportion of your budget that's coming from grants versus other sources. I want you to do that. I know last year I did a diversify your revenue workshop, but this is the next step I want you to do. After you do the funding audit, I want you to develop a diversification plan. Okay, I want you to start identifying potential new revenue streams that can reduce your dependency on grants. Like you might tell yourself, oh, it's not nearly enough to replace the grant. Okay, that's the excuse I'm hearing. I'm going to need you to get out of that hat and think about solutions because you need to stop depending so much on grants. So any policy or administration changes are not affecting your organization in the way it is. Because I always tell nonprofit organizations, yes, you might feel it's affecting you, but think about the people you're serving and how it's affecting them. Okay, because it trickles down. It's not only affecting you and the organization and the staff, but it's also affecting the people that you're serving. So I'm going to need you to conduct a funding audit, figure out the proportion of where your money is coming from, right? Is it grants? Is it other sources? And also develop a diversification plan so you can start identifying new ways to bring money into your organization, because grants should not be the only source. And if it is the only source, you're feeling it really tight right now. Because one thing I was sharing with someone this morning is that you may get a grant from a foundation and think you're safe, but a lot of these foundations, they find grants from the government. Okay, so imagine if these grants are taken away from these foundation, it indirectly impacts you because now they won't have the money to provide you the grant or contract that they had with you. Okay, so I'm gonna need you to start thinking a little bit long term and not just being like very short-sighted about it. Yes, it's quick money. Like you might think it's easy money. It's not. It's a lot of work for the money that you're trying to get from the grants. But the grant dependency, why I called it the grant dependency dilemma, it's because it's a catch-22. Yes, it's good money or whatever. It funds the activities for right now, but it's not going to provide long-term sustainability. And that's why even last year I was working so hard on ensuring that nonprofits understand they understood the value of diversifying your revenue streams. And we're back at it where this year it's very important that you learn it. I've been teaching this since last year and it has not changed. Okay. Because then 30% of US nonprofits receive government grants, right? And like I was saying, 60 to 80% of nonprofits that rely on these government grants at the time of this research or this thing being posted, it said they would face financial shortfalls if significant funding changes would occur. And it's happening, it's happening, it's happening, it's here. You know, I'm thinking of the meme, like, like it's here, right? Like it's here. So right now it's not a drill. You're gonna have to get it together and think about different ways to diversify your revenue to ensure that you're not being impacted in the worst way possible, but also thinking out of the box. Thinking out of the box of how you can do that, because there's a false sense of security that grants provide, right? There's an administrative burden and restrictions associated with grants. And not only that, the sudden grant terminations have been happening. It impacts your program continuity and the sustainability of your organization. Okay. And now all these recent funding cuts, they've been a wake-up call for so many organizations, but I need you to not stay in the dumps for too long and figure out how you are going to circumvent that and do better. There was an organization, like one of the case studies that I wanted to share today, Ball and Socket Arts. They're in Connecticut. They were denied a 4.5 million EPA grant that halted redevelopment plans for this particular organization. Now, the article that I read about it highlighted the risks of relying on anticipated grant funding. Imagine they had their hopes on this EPA grant for redevelopment. They had plans, they had discussions with the stakeholder and funder to make sure that this worked out. But with the policy and administration changes, all of that went out the window. Okay, so these are things that I want you to seriously consider when you are thinking about revenue for your nonprofit and ensure, hey, Ricky, you're the only picture I saw. So comment, whatever it is, let me know you're here so this algorithm can stop messing with me. So that's the first case study that I had with anticipated funding. And the source for that was Fundraise. Okay, so definitely look up Ball, BALL, and Socket Art and how their denial of $4.5 million in EPA grant really impacted the way they were delivering services. And there's another case study I wanted to share. It was an NPR lawsuit, right? This NPR filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration over an executive order that was seeking to terminate federal funding, right? Emphasizing the political risk associated with government grants. Your organization may be doing great work, but the grants that you're getting, also the political climate impacts the grants. So if your organization is doing amazing work in the community, it also is in your best interest and your responsibility to ensure that you're generating revenue and diversifying enough that the political climate will not impact the work that you do. Because then imagine, right? Imagine all these organizations that lost funding because of the DEI cuts, because of, I know there were issues with the arts, right? There are a lot of programs that are being impacted. The delivery of these programs are being impacted because of the political risk. So I really want you to think hard about what these grants can do to your nonprofit if you're not being careful. Now, I know the US is not the only one that was impacted. There was also I know, I don't know if you're paying attention to it, but the USAID and all of that, right? The cuts that are happening there, they're causing a severe, like if you're paying attention to the news, I try to like limit my interaction with the news, but it's causing severe humanitarian crises in Somalia, right? It's showing how there's global impact to the funding restrictions and reductions that are happening across nonprofits. So I really need nonprofits to get to the table and have conversations or really evaluate with your board how you can diversify your revenue while sticking to mission. Because as a nonprofit, you are a business. You just have to determine what your business model is and what you need to do to ensure that funding restrictions or funding changes through grants it's not going to impact your nonprofit in the sense that it would. So if you're getting a $4.5 million grant, I want you to get to the table and kind of figure out how you're going to raise $4.5 million. Because if you can get a $4.5 million grant, you can build enough relationships to try to raise that much money through fundraising campaigns or whatever. So that's where I need nonprofits to be. If you're getting a grant for a certain amount, you need to get to the table and you need to challenge yourself and ask yourself, how am I going to match this? Some grants, they don't give it to you unless there's a match. There's a reason for that because to them, it's a risk. If they do not give you that money, are you going to be able to deliver on the things you say you're going to deliver? Do you have that money already in the bank? So I know it's hard for a lot of nonprofits to match certain grants they're applying for, but I want you to approach it like you have no choice. Okay. I want you to have that mindset and approach it like, okay, I don't have a choice but to match this. How am I going to match this? Because when you start changing the way you approach how you lead your organization and how you make certain decisions when it comes to funding and things like that, your whole organization and model changes because you're able to do things for your organization now that you weren't able to do before. Because in the individuals that are watching, I know you are a person and I know that impacts you also need to control the way you lead, right? If you're leading from a mindset of scarcity, right? You're not thinking about the abundance that's out there. It's going to have you lead in a way where you're thinking about woe is me, like there's no money out there. Listen, people are still buying jets and people are still flying private jets. Like the money is out there. Is how you tap into these relationships for you to be able to raise the capital in the relationships that you're building. Because at the end of the day, a nonprofit, like nobody's going to support you if they don't know you exist. But if you're staying in the same rooms and staying comfortable with the same people because you became complacent, right? You're not going to grow. Because then if there are certain animals, I don't know if you pay attention to that, some animals, if you put them in a small environment, they will stay small. But if you put them in a larger environment, they will grow. And I want you to adopt the same mindset as a leader. If you put yourself in rooms, your nonprofit as well, in rooms that allow for bigger opportunities, grants is not the only opportunity you have out there. You also have to build relationships. That's the reason yesterday. When did I go live? The last time I went live, it was about community visibility, right? That's why it's very important for organizations, nonprofit organizations, to start working on building relationships. A lot of times some people are saying they don't want to betray the people they serve. It's not betraying the people they serve because at the end of the day, if you don't have money to give the people you serve a program, then you don't have a program. So how are you going to make that money to serve them if you're not putting yourself in rooms where you can actually tell people about the good work that you do and garner that support? Okay. You may feel uncomfortable in these rooms, but there's a reason you're uncomfortable because you haven't done it before. You have not been in these rooms before. Go read a book. Go read a book on leadership. Go read a book on how to have effective communications. I know there are books on that. And go read a book on how to talk about anything but small talk. Because I will tell you right now, one thing I despise is going to networking events or having conversations and the conversations about it's small talk. Oh, how's the weather today? How are your kids doing? It's not what I'm here to talk about. Like, let's have a conversation, an intelligent conversation. So, as a nonprofit leader, not only are you leading an organization and serving people, it's in your best interest to start learning about how to do your job. Okay. Like I know some people I'm not gonna sugarcoat it for you. You have to learn how to do your job. Your job is making sure your nonprofit is in a position where it can continue to do the work that it's supposed to do. And the complacency that a lot of leaders are experiencing because grants have been a good way and safe way to get the monies they needed. Like that's what's gonna get you in trouble. Because let's think about the evolution of what's happening right now, right? Right now, we're in a position where grants are being pulled away because of administration changes. Right now, let's say, because AI is going to be something else. Like a lot of people are talking about AI is going to take their jobs. No, there's going to be a shift because with the evolution in technology, everything changing, there's going to be a shift where now they're going to go for leaner teams, right? When the teams are leaner, you need to get to a point where you are up leveling your skills in your organization in your company to ensure that you can adapt with the times, right? These grant changes happening, it's an indicator, it's a sign for you to adapt with the times. What we're going through right now, it's not by happenstance. It's showing you what direction you need to go in. You need to change something in the way you operate. And right now, the complacency and dependency on grants, it's showing you that you've been too dependent on grants. You've been too dependent on grants and it's causing you a lot of headache. So what needs to happen? You need to start looking at how, like I was telling you earlier, you need to do a funding audit. Look at the sources of income and revenue for your organization. Look at what needs to change within the organization to ensure you're matching the funding that you're losing or surpassing it through other ways. Look if there are groups in your surrounding area or um, philanthropic groups in your area, or even high level donors in your area. Because sometimes you'll see people that support the arts, that support this, that support that, right? And people know about them. Or maybe you can just look it up and see who in your area has been doing that type of work. Or even do research and find out where these people hang out. Where do they hang out? Look up certain corporations and see what they support, what they've been supporting. If you don't know how to do it, guess what? There's something called deep research and ChatGPT. If you haven't used it yet, you're behind. Okay, there's a reason I tell people to use technology to your benefit. Do some deep research in AI. Ask AI to look up like organizations that support these causes and how much they've donated to these causes. And my challenge for you is to go build relationships with the leaders of those organizations. Like if you don't know them from a can of paint, don't go in there asking them, hey, can you donate? I see you do XYZ. No, go build the relationship. Go see the work that they do, participate in the work that they do, build a relationship with them, ask them to have a virtual coffee chat or in-person coffee chat so you can build a rapport with that individual. So if you ever have to make an ask, it does not feel like you're using that person, because a lot of people have a fear of rejection because they feel like they're doing something wrong. Build a relationship with people and stop being awkward. We're not in the fourth grade anymore. We're adults. Stop approaching relationships like they're a brand new thing to you. You've been in this world for quite some time. You pay bills, you have a car, you drive a car, you talk to people all the time. So build relationships with like other capable adults that can support your nonprofit organization, right? And that can support your mission. And use ChatGPT to do deep research for you. Okay, and that's one way you're gonna save yourself some time. Ask it to do some deep research, tell it what you want to do, tell it what you're trying to accomplish, and get it done. Get it done. Because then I've been putting out a few custom GPTs and being tested out. Because then the grant writing assistant is one. There was another one called the Impact Navigator that's coming out. I'm going to need testers for those as well. But I understand the environment that we're in and what people are going to need, and nonprofits being that you need to like reduce some of you are going to have to reduce the size of your team and become more efficient, and you're going to need to tap into technology and AI to help you with that. But instead of resisting the change that's coming and adapting, I need you to look at it from a different perspective, reframing if you want, and see how it can serve you and your nonprofit to utilize the tools that you have at your disposal. So definitely look into that. And like I was talking about the resistance to change, right? Too many nonprofits are resisting adopting new tech or strategies because either they have a lack of understanding, and they don't want to say that. They just say it's diabolical. Like that's something I've been hearing a lot, right? They just say it's diabolical, oh, it's gonna replace us, it's evil, right? No, people thought the microwave was evil. People thought the phones were evil. Any new piece of technology that people do not understand, they resist. So for nonprofits, we are being thrown in a pit that we have no choice but to climb out of or stay at the bottom. So at this point, I'm going to need you to start looking outside of yourself and start thinking progressively as to what can I do today to ensure this nonprofit is able to serve this community that I serve, because these people need the work that we do more than I need to cling to this false sense of security that I have. Because that's the other thing. Sometimes we feel safe. We feel too safe to shake the tree. I'm gonna need you to shake the tree, because the resistance that you have to this change that's happening is leading to inefficiencies and missed opportunities. Missed opportunities being the key term here, because you are just looking at the distractions that are happening right now, right? Like the funding being taken away. I say distractions, like I say it lightly. Okay. The reason I say distractions because all these things are happening, and a lot of people will stay emotionally focused on the problem and not thinking about the solution. And if you watch me, if you pay attention to my lives, you know I prefer solution-oriented people. Because if you stay focused on the problem where all you do is complain, moan, and groan about the problem, you're going to stay with the problem. Okay, because the other thing I want to make sure I bring to your attention today, sometimes it's the problem presents itself. You have your emotions, you feel what you feel. But then if you don't move to change it, it's going to stay there. Sometimes moving to change it or doing anything to change it is going to take years. But does it solve the problem you have right now? And that's one thing I want you to realize. Feel your feelings about whatever you're experiencing or whatever your nonprofit is going through in terms of losing funding, losing grants. But at this point in time, you need to figure out what solutions you need to adopt, and maybe you need to diversify your revenue one way or another, or build stronger relationships and partnerships with philanthropy groups or bigger donors, even small donors, and change things around so you can bring that revenue back. Okay, so that's what I'm going to say about the resistance to change. I can go on and on about what it can do to you and your nonprofit, but it's very important that you start embracing innovation for operational efficiency and making sure that your organization is not losing a pep in its step because of all these things that are happening, right? You can start looking into, one thing I want to do is how technology can aid your nonprofit in donor engagement, donor management, and program delivery. and not just focus on the bad things happening, because there are a lot of things that are happening that are not beneficial to your nonprofit. But again, solution oriented, reframe if you can, because that's going to be very important. And so the recommendations I'm going to leave you with today, okay? Because I do want to leave you with certain recommendations. I did write down 5. I had more, but 5. I'm going to leave you with 5, and I'm going to make sure I put them in the comments if you're watching on Facebook. And I'm going to type them as I say them since my notes are in front of me. One thing I want you to do is you start developing earn income streams. Earn income streams is one. And what I want you to do with earn income streams, you have to think about services or products that align with your mission. So I'm going to type that in right now too. Think of services and products. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about this because some people may like, oh, we're a nonprofit. We can't do that. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can have services and products for your nonprofit organization as long as they align with your mission. So an example, let's say you are a mental health focused nonprofit. Maybe you develop products, digital products. Maybe it can be a checklist for parents to identify, or maybe to deal with certain issues that they have with teens or stuff like that, and you sell it on your website for $5, or it's a pay what you want model, right? You can have that on your website as a digital product, or maybe like you have as a physical product and you sell it when you do outreach events and you're a vendor, and letting them know that the proceeds do support the nonprofit organization and things like that. Provide them with a receipt because they're a purchase. Talk to a CPA or attorney, can be deductible, whatever it is, but you have to figure that out, right? So digital products that align with your mission to ensure that you have another source of earned income, right? If you are a mental health focused nonprofit, right, and you offer mental health services, therapy, like whatever it is in the community, maybe you can have a business model where you offer it to a certain audience for free, but you have to make sure that this is paid for by an entity. So let's say it's in the community, in the schools, in the workplace or whatnot. See if you get contracts with the schools to pay for it, or businesses to sponsor these programs so the people in the community can get it for free. And the model can also have a paid version where people pay. There's a payment model based on what they earn. Okay. So people that are not in your audience can pay, they can have that model based on what they earn, and you have a system to evaluate that and a process to invoice them, to bill them and things like that. But your nonprofit can definitely charge people for certain services. Okay. So instead of, oh, we can't charge that, we don't want to do that. Okay. The other option is that you close your door and don't offer it to anybody. You got to pick. You can't have both. Because then if you don't have enough money to provide it for free, you got to find a way to charge for it so you can have money to keep your doors open. And that's what I want to bring to the forefront. Some people don't want to hear that, but you got to pick. You got to pick your battles. Either you close your doors, or you develop a model where you can charge some people and not charge others. The people that you don't charge, the money it's still got to come in. It's still got to come through, and you got to work on it. So either find contracts or sponsors to pay for these seats. Like you can let these sponsors or funders know, hey, our goal is to serve 500 people in XYZ community. And based on our research, we identified that this is the demographic in your school that needs our services based on our research, and we would love to serve at least XYZ number. So let's say 500 in that community, and you identify, or 5,000 in that community, 500 of them attend that school. Tell the school that you want to target at least 100 in that school and whatnot, that you would offer your services for free, but you would like to secure a contract with the school to offer these services to close the gaps that they have, because a lot of schools are losing staff. Okay, so you would have to do your research on that. And this is the kind of thing I work with my clients on in the clarity coaching session. So if you have not booked one yet, I highly suggest you go ahead and book a clarity coaching session because I should have 4 slots left. 4 slots left, and it's a pay what you want model starting at $127. Okay, so go ahead and book your clarity coaching session because these are things that we can work on in identifying like where you need to start and where you need to hit the ground running. Okay, so that was recommendation 1. Recommendation 2 is cultivating individual donors. Okay. Now, for that, what you need to do is to build relationships. I'm going to put that in the comments as well. Build relationships beyond grant makers. And I will say some of you are not even building relationships with the grant makers. Okay, that is a huge problem. So build relationship beyond grant makers. So that means you need to build a relationship for grant makers if you have not been doing that. So individual donors. So think about people that can donate on an individual basis, like, small donors, big donors. And that's why I said start researching what people, like what cause they donate to or what interests them and things like that. And sometimes it's going on Facebook groups. Sometimes it's engaging with people on social media. Hey, this is what we do. Would anybody or asking a question, an engaging question to determine who supports that cause and not being not being in your face about it. And that's the other thing. Some people are just like, oh, we need money. No, no, there's more, use more tact. Okay. You need more tact. Like, this is the work that we've been doing and kind of watch who engages and stuff like that. Like, share storytelling and whatnot, and see who is interested in supporting that cause and cultivate a relationship with that person. Cultivate a relationship and make the ask one day, because if you don't ask, you won't get it. But it's important to build a relationship with the individual donors. Okay. Now, 3 that I have in my notes is engage corporate partners. Okay, so I'm going to put that in the chat before I forget. Engage corporate partners, and I'm going to explain what that means. So engaging corporate partners, you want to seek sponsorships and in-kind support. In-kind support, it doesn't have to be monetary. In-kind support can be support that your organization needs in an area or another. So let's say some media companies will provide in-kind support. That means they're going to promote for you, promote the event. They're giving you something, right? It's not money, but they're doing something for you that helps you. Okay. And some of them give in-kind support in other ways. Some companies will provide volunteers. Like, they will give you volunteers for an event. It's not money, but it's staff. Okay. It's people that work. So look for sponsorship and in-kind support. Sponsorship with corporate partners. So go to events like Chamber of Commerce's and things like that, and build those relationships, engage those people. Go when you go to outreach events and you see the corporate partners being announced, have conversations with them and see what their interests are and figure out what's important for that corporation or that business, that small to mid-sized business, so you can actually build a relationship with these partners as well, so you can seek the sponsorships. Because then have conversations, like ask a person for to meet again or keep that relationship alive, and ask them who would be the best. Can you introduce me? Because then for sponsorships, if you meet someone in that corporation, one tidbit I have for you, ask them to introduce you because you want to get a sponsorship. Ask them to introduce you, and if you're comfortable with that person, hey, put in a good word for me. Introduce me to whomever is the contact for sponsorships, so we can solicit a sponsorship from XYZ Corporation. Okay, and that's number 3. And Emily, I think that's you. I saw your picture. I think that's you. But definitely that's number 3. So number 4 that I have, the 4th recommendation that I have, you need to start implementing a recurring giving program. Now, some people love the work that you do, right? And sometimes it's easier to offer them the option of doing recurring giving because then they want to give, but you don't make it easy. They have to keep going on your website and donating, and sometimes people forget. So think about recurring giving programs and think about incentives that you can offer to people for being part of a recurring giving program. So you should encourage monthly donations from people for steady income. Okay. And incentives could be like share the impact monthly newsletter. They can get monthly updates of what's happening and how their money is contributing to the work that you're doing, sharing the story or whatever, asking them if they want to meet the people that you're serving or if they want to volunteer, like give them something. Okay. Like, I don't care what it is, send them something, or to encourage them to do that. Let me put that steady income. All right, so that was my fourth. And my last recommendation would be to start leveraging technology for what it is. It is a tool. So use CRM systems. Now, if you have donors, put them in a CRM system and have a workflow or whatever it is, stakeholders, use CRM system and digital tools to improve the efficiency of your organization. Because then sometimes you may have a donor, they made a donation today, and then you tell yourself you're going to follow up in June. June comes in, you're too busy and you forget, right? So if you add them to a CRM system and that workflow is already set up, then the workflow either can send you a reminder to touch base with them, or it can send them an email that's pre-generated with the templates, because the variables, there we go, variables is the word I'm looking for, with the variables where it can replace the name. Hey, I just wanted to check in and update you, this is what's been happening, this is what's going on. But that just means that once a month you go in there and update with a story or whatever, or update the workflow to ensure that it is providing current information, but at least having a CRM system or a workflow in place or other digital tools, it's gonna work to your benefit. Now I'm gonna also put this, type this number 5 in the chat so you can have that. So that was my last recommendation, is the tech and digital tools, okay? So the other thing, like, I know I have several resources, and one of them I talked about was booking a clarity coaching session. And listen, if you're at the point where you don't know what else to do, definitely book one. Book one of those, and we will determine what your 45-day action plan should be, and you'll get a PDF of what that is, and you get to work. Because one thing I do is I'm a coach and a consultant. So coaching you through what the next steps need to be is very important to me. And the coaching clarity session, the clarity coaching session is definitely a place to be. It's a 60-minute coaching session. It's a pay what you want model starting at $127. So it's not going to be, I'm not going to offer these again for the rest of the year because that does take my time away from what I can do. But I want to continue support smaller organizations so they can grow into what they can be. And especially with what's happening right now, a lot of nonprofits are experiencing a crisis, right? A crisis, and it's just a matter of getting yourself and the nonprofit out of it. So the clarity coaching session is definitely a good place to be. The link is in my comments, but it's also in my Beacon storefront. So if you're not sure what it is, go to my Beacon storefront or check the comments on Facebook, and definitely go book yours, because I have 4 left. So book your clarity coaching session and let's get to work. With that said, it's almost an hour now and I gotta go. I gotta go check on this kid that's on vacation now and make sure he's good, because he had his lunch and he was good. But let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and looking forward to seeing you or having a conversation with you soon. If you have any questions about any of the services I offer and would like to know anything specific, DM me, okay? Send me a DM and let's have a chat. But I always recommend go to my Beacon storefront first and see what I have, and then have a conversation with me about something that you need if you don't see it. And I will definitely let you know if that's something I do or not. Anyways, have a wonderful Tuesday. It is Tuesday. Yes, it is Tuesday. Have a wonderful Tuesday, and I'll see you soon. Bye, y'all.